Life is fragile, everybody breaks so easy. Life is fragile, no one is immune. In the long run, everyone must take their turn. Yeah, but this lesson we don't want to take, but all have to learn. And I'll stay here with you, knowing that Jesus is here to carry us through. And all through the night, I'll stay by your side until the morning appears and sun and moon collide. Life is fragile, everybody breaks so easy. Life is fragile, no one is immune. Our time betrays us, and our minds they try to enslave us, but there remains nonetheless perfect hope that will lead us to rest, perfect rest. And I'll stay here with you, knowing that Jesus is here to carry us through. And all through the night, I'll stay by your side until the morning appears and sun and moon collide. Life is fragile, everybody breaks so easy.
Julia, a student in her 20s, describes herself as a chronic relapser for whom social stress was the trigger for alcohol use.
I always felt out of place. I always felt like I didn't fit into my skin. I was so afraid of people in the world, and I had horrible social anxiety, and all I ever really wanted was to be part of something, to have friends and to be comfortable with people, and I couldn't do it sober. And when I had my first drink, it was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for all my life.
And as John describes his love for alcohol and cigarettes, it was as if words were not powerful enough or poignant enough to capture the character of his obsession.
The first time I took a drink, it was like black and white world became technicolor. The first time I smoked a cigarette, I can act it out for you, but then you can't record that. It felt like this. And I'm taking a deep breath and sinking into my chair like it was extremely relaxing. It relaxed my mind, my body, my breathing, everything. And that is what I was continuing to search for every time I smoked a cigarette after that.
There is a phrase, chasing the dragon, that you might have heard of. It comes originally from the world of recreational drug use, particularly of smoking heroin, but the phrase means that someone is trying to feel good again, chasing that high again. The first high of taking heroin is nearly impossible to duplicate. As users try to escape the rebound low and recreate that initial feeling, they take more and more of the drug. And as they become addicted, users keep taking the drug long after it stops giving them pleasure, despite the consequences. But this applies to other substances and behaviours too. Sometimes this means doing higher dosages or trying stronger and stronger drugs to feel the same way they used to after building a tolerance. Sometimes it might mean something like going rock climbing to feel a sense of excitement, but needing to climb ever higher or solve ever more dangerous boulders. Other people might feel it when gambling, but feel the need eventually to increase the amount that they're spending time and time. Or watching pornography which sucks them in and they find the need to watch it more and more. As Nora, a nursing assistant in her late 50s, said,
The first drink just sucked me in.
But in each case, the reality never quite lived up to the promise of that first time. Nothing quite matched that first hit. Welcome back to our study of John's Gospel. I'm Ian, and this is the Selah Time to Pause podcast from Plexus Salvation Army, an online church in the UK.
I will stop and breathe in your presence. Just breathe. Just breathe.
Scripture from John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. 3 days later, there was a wedding in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples were guests also. When they started running low on wine at the wedding banquet, Jesus' mother told him, "They're just about out of wine." Jesus said, "Is that any of our business, mother? Yours or mine? This isn't my time. Don't push me." She went ahead anyway, telling the servants, "Whatever he tells you, do it." 6 stoneware water pots were there, used by the Jews for ritual washings. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus ordered the servants, "Fill the pots with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Now fill your pitchers and take them to the host," Jesus said, and so they did. When the host tasted the water that had become wine, he didn't know what had just happened, but the servants, of course, knew. He called out to the bridegroom, "Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now." This act in Cana of Galilee was the first sign Jesus gave, the first glimpse of his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
I wonder whether the host, the governor of the feast, said more than he intended to say, giving the game away for how he usually hosted the parties and the weddings of others. Give them the good wine when they're all sober, and then, when no one will really remember it anymore, bring out the cheap stuff without much flavour, or with a less pleasant flavour. You can probably even imagine that some hosts might continue to charge for the good stuff, the best stuff, throughout the entire event, and even just try to keep the folk just merry enough that they won't notice.
"Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now."
At the very least, I suspect that there was more truth in his statement than he realised. It's the allure of pleasure, but it doesn't simply apply to addictive substances and behaviours. It's the way of the world. Start with the best, and when you've drawn them in, then you no longer need to live up to that promise anymore. It's the allure of sin too. Over-promise and under-deliver. How many things that are ultimately bad for us, unhealthy activities or damaging situations, seem harmless or even good to us at first until they draw us in, but by that time they've got us. But they never live up to the promise they made. The goodness sours, and the elusive joy of that first time is then never replicated. The second wine is not so sparkling as the first, the third less so again. The fourth and fifth are dull and lifeless, and by the 10th you're drinking nothing but vinegar, and yet you keep coming back because its claws are in you. Friendship first, but afterwards the drawn sword. Yet in this miracle, Jesus shows that his way is going to be different, just as his kingdom is destined to be different to the kingdom of this world. He will not overpromise and underdeliver. Life with Jesus is not going to ultimately disappoint. The quality is not going to diminish. The good grace that he offers will not deteriorate. If anything, it will grow and grow as time goes on. And as we discover more of him and his promise, it will be as if he's saved the very best for last.
"Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now."
Always greater, always better, always increasing, always outshining. As John Newton said in his hymn Amazing Grace, "How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed." But the promise does not outstrip the reality, for as he also said, even after 10,000 years it will never be exhausted and will be as great as when we first begun. Life may be fragile, but our God is faithful. and so are his promises.